This podcast is part of the Dark Myths Collective. Visit darkmyths.org to discover more shows like this one. The darkness awaits.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
I am one of those annoying people who really get into Christmas. I know the holidays are not a festive time of year for everyone, and sometimes that includes me. When I feel a little grinchy, I fall back on holiday traditions that make me think of times when I was little or when my daughter was young, and sooner or later the Christmas spirit takes over. My Christmas spirit is a little different. I'm the sort of person who revels in tinsel and twinkle lights, as well as the idea of Santa coming down the chimney with a sack full of gifts or ghouls, maybe even an axe in his hands. I love holiday horror and the darker Christmas legends. Here in Pennsylvania, the history of our state is rooted in the Pennsylvania Dutch traditions, filled with old-world holiday legends that blend good and evil, light with just a twist of dark. I'm Dina Marie, your host on this twisted journey. Welcome to Twisted Philly.
There's more mischief, mayhem, and nefarious goings-on in the city of brotherly love than Billy Penn could have ever imagined. We've got it all here on the Twisted Philly podcast. True crime, haunted history, the coolest and creepiest places to visit. Welcome to Twisted Philly.
I had one of those households where it looked like Christmas threw up. Between the decorations, an enormous Charles Griswold tree, and a pile of gifts that made you think it was a household with 6 kids instead of 2. Yeah, we were spoiled. All of that was fabulous. And then there was the fighting. What can I say? The holidays were fucked up sometimes. I take solace in the fact that I'm not the only person who grew up like that. I'm certain that's why I love Christmas horror so much. Well, who am I kidding? I love horror and I love Christmas regardless of the dysfunction in my family and my holidays growing up. I love it so much, I did an episode last year about my favorite tradition of watching Christmas horror films. And I'll have another episode like that coming up this month with some new holiday horror gems. One of the movies I flipped over last year was A Christmas Horror Story. I'm not going to take you through a recap of the film, but I do want to mention one of the reasons I loved that movie was the epic smackdown between Santa and Krampus. It was like a cage match, the battle of Christmas cheer versus Christmas fear. That juxtaposition of the kindest, most generous mythical character battling his arch nemesis, who is the antithesis of everything Santa represents, well, it was just brilliant. Who is Krampus, and why is he suddenly everywhere? He has his own movie, Krampus, which was also in my holiday horror movie episode last year, and he has sequels, spin-offs, and rip-offs that are so bad they're bad. You probably thought I was going to say they're so bad they're good. Alas, no. They're just basically bad. Like St. Nicholas, Krampus has European roots, dating back to the 12th century in Austria and Germany, when both he and St. Nicholas would venture out on Krampusnacht on December 5th, which is the eve of St. Nicholas Day. Children left shoes or boots outside their door. Good children would awaken to find treats or gifts in their shoes, while bad, misbehaved children would find a rod left by Krampus. The idea that Santa knows if you've been good or bad seems obsolete, because Krampus owns the distinguished title of the beast who swats bad children with sticks and drags them to the underworld. He's considered to be the child of Hel, the ruler of Helheim, which is the land of the dead. Hel is half living, half dead. Her head and torso are alive, while her legs are like the living dead, rotting away with decay. Like his mother, Krampus is a study in blended form as well. He's half goat, half demon with cloven hooves, huge horns curling out from his head, and deadly fangs. Some depictions feature Krampus covered in black hair, and in others he looks more like a ghoul. He sometimes has claws for hands, and that's how he got his name from the German word Krampus, which means claw. Other renditions show Krampus with long, hooked fingers. No matter how he's drawn or imagined, he is terrifying. Krampus carries bells and long birch switches made from tree branches. Now, the bells can be deceiving because are they Santa's sleigh bells, or are they Krampus bells tolling for bad boys and girls? And the branches? Well, Krampus uses those to terrorize bad little children. As much as I love movies about Krampus, Krampus figurines, and the notion of good versus evil at Christmas, you may be wondering, what does an old European Christmas legend have to do with Philadelphia or Pennsylvania? There are actually more connections than you might expect. Philadelphia has our very own Krampus parade and celebration. The event was conceived in 2011 by Philadelphia couple Amber and Ben Stopper, who wanted to spread their interest in Krampus with others, but do it in a way that was kid and family friendly, welcoming to anyone and everyone. They found a kindred spirit in a woman named Janet Finnegar, who was the park coordinator at Liberty Lands Park in Northern Liberty. With a fire pit, gingerbread cookies shaped like Krampus, some puppet-making workshops, and a few rules so everyone knew how to behave, this is Philly after all, the city that booed Santa at a Flyers game. Their first Krampus Loft was a success. The following year, it got even bigger. More attendees, Krampus lovers, cosplay lovers, and folks just looking for a new and interesting way to celebrate the holiday season. Luxarati also performed at the festival that year. That's a troupe of amazingly talented fire belly dancers in Philadelphia. You may have seen them if you've ever attended one of the Philly Fringe festivals. Over the last 6 years, Amber, Ben, and their fellow artists, organizers, and Krampus lovers were featured in books and magazines. They were interviewed for NPR. They've had incredible guest artists and musicians participate in Krampus Loft. The event experienced a rebrand and is now called the Parade of Spirits at Liberty Lands. On their website, the event is described as, rather than an entertainment event, Parade of Spirits Liberty Lands is an example of the power of community ritual, a tableau or a meditation, a voluntary village coming together briefly to acknowledge the significance, the necessity of darkness in a season that promotes, however forced, cheer and light. It is brought together every year by the loving, creative residents of Northern Liberties, parents, artists, children, garden and fire tenders, and with the generosity of the Penn Treaty Special Services District. This year's event is on Saturday, December 9th at Liberty Lands, while I will be in Chicago, or I would be at the Parade of Spirits. The parade begins between 4:45 and 5 p.m. You definitely want to check out their website because there is so much information, not only about the event, but about participating artists, previous events, programs for kids, folklore, and how to volunteer if you're interested. There are other Krampus connections in the Keystone State. Like Christmas Village at Philadelphia's City Hall and Love Park, People's Gas in Pittsburgh hosts a Christmas Village downtown in Market Square. It's filled with little chalets hosting all sorts of merchants offering beautiful wares. On December 5th, Market Square hosts Krampusnacht.
Pittsburgh is one of the first cities to celebrate Krampusnacht.
Well, those of you who have seen the movie or maybe studied a little bit of German may have already heard about Krampus. He is the mythical goat-like creature, kind of like the exact opposite of Santa Claus. Well, some very creative folks here in Pittsburgh thought it was time to celebrate Krampus officially right here in Market Square tonight. It's all in fun and just might be the start of an early December tradition.
The big guy himself arrives at 7 p.m. on the main stage. And as in big guy, I do not mean St. Nicholas. I mean Krampus. You can get your picture taken on his lap, which is so fucking twisted. I love it. They've got a Krampus band called Slayer. So I went to Slayer's Facebook page. Their band name is spelled like Santa Sleigh, S-L-E-I-G-H-E-R. They're pictured wearing the most demonic-looking folklore masks I've ever seen. is the band's debut performance. That's sort of risky, right? A Krampus band that's never performed out before, showing up to play at a Krampus festival. I guess if they suck, you can just say they're angry devils and they're supposed to sound that way. The band goes on at 7 p.m. after the arrival of Krampus, and then after the band, there's a Krampus bar crawl. And if the pictures from last year are any indication, Pittsburgh takes Krampus seriously.
A new kind of experience awaited unsuspecting visitors to the Market Square Christmas Village. Lurking in the shadows amid the sparkle and merriment, creatures that appear to be the antithesis of Christmas.
It's catching on. It's red hot right now.
The bar crawl looked more like a parade, and almost everyone who attended was in some form or another of Krampus costume. Last year was Pittsburgh's first Krampusnacht, conceived by local Mark Menholt. Now, he's the creator of the Pittsburgh Zombie Festival. Last year's event featured an impressive-looking Krampus with a basket on his back and what looked like a terrified papier-mâché little boy inside, like the children Krampus drags to the underworld. Steel City balloons were there last year, making holiday balloon animals, although animal isn't the right word for grumpy snowmen balloons and Krampus horn balloon hats. Last year's Krampusnacht at Pittsburgh Christmas Market looked amazing. I have a feeling this year's will be even better. Please, please, if you're in Pittsburgh, go check it out so you can post pictures on social media and I'll get to see what I missed.
Krampus is hundreds of years old, European holiday. It's a little bit of Halloween. It's a little bit of Christmas.
And a little unorthodox and unusual.
Not quite as far across the state as Pittsburgh is a town in south-central Pennsylvania called New Oxford. It's about 10 miles east of Gettysburg. There in New Oxford is a house on Green Ridge Road with a 12-foot Krampus statue on the front lawn. It's constructed from saw blades and other recycled materials like machinery parts. Sculpture artist Jeff Asper spent months acquiring his materials from auctions or donations. Jeff started work on the sculpture in the spring of 2016, and completing it took almost the whole year. Neighbors thought he was working on a piece for Halloween, and that's certainly understandable because Krampus is horrific. Rather than listen to me tell you about it, I'll let Jeff do the talking. I found Jeff Asper on Facebook through his company Tossed and Found Art, and he was kind enough to spend a few minutes with me chatting about his Krampus sculpture, his career as an artist, and a new holiday piece that joined the collection this year. Hi, Jeff. This is Dina from Twisted Philly.
Hi, Dina. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
You were probably a little surprised when you got my note asking to speak with you.
No, that's cool. When people appreciate this stuff.
Well, I really appreciate your willingness to chat.
Sure, no problem.
Jeff, I found you because I was researching stories about Krampus around Pennsylvania, and I found an interview with you last year in the New Oxford Evening Sun about a 12-foot Krampus statue you created that sits on your front lawn.
That's right, yeah. Built him over a course of a year before Christmas last year. And then I actually got to display him, I guess, November and December. He was on display, and he's back in the front yard now.
Where does he go when he's not on display?
He just kind of gets moved around a little bit, but he's all lit up for Christmas right now. There's a giant inflatable candy cane arch behind him, and he's also holding his stick, which has Christmas lights on it and kind of looks like a candy cane. And then he's wearing like Christmas wreaths, and that's all lit up.
That sounds fantastic. I saw photographs online of you standing with your Krampus sculpture, and it's remarkable. His horns are insane. What did you use to make the horns?
His horns are actually part of a plow. It's old farm machinery. And his backbone's probably about 15 saw blades, and there's a lot of chain and old discarded metals that I come across at auctions or people donate.
I spent some time on your website, and I read that you're a self-taught artist. Would you tell me a little bit about how you began sculpting?
I mean, I've always, since I was young, I've built vehicles and messed with welders and stuff. And then I guess back in 2012, I built my first scrap metal sculpture, which was like a full-size man. That's actually up in Gettysburg now, right outside of Gettysburg Rental Center. And then from there, people loved it. So then I just started making new stuff and get a lot of commission work. People give me ideas, and then I just kind of run with it.
Jeff, how do you source the materials you use in your sculptures? Do you scavenge them? Are they donated?
Yeah, I scavenge for it. I go to a lot of farm auctions in the summer. Basically, a lot of stuff people don't want to bid on, or it's going for scrap prices. I usually get all that I can, and then just go through it and decide what I'm going to use and keep it on one pile, and then take the stuff and recycle the other stuff that I'm not going to use.
While I was on your website, I saw a sculpture that was a tribute to Alfred Hitchcock's movie The Birds, and it's part of your shadow art collection. The piece features a skull on a spider web with birds in flight. It's a beautiful piece.
I was actually going to tell you about that one.
You have to tell me more about it, because when I watched the video, I literally screamed out loud in my living room, "You're freaking kidding me."
Yeah, it's cool. Now, I figured you're into that kind of stuff, so I thought you'd enjoy that one. Actually, I'm not even sure how I came up with the idea. I just had a vision about, his shadow, like in the old Alfred Hitchcock Presents, how he walks into his shadow.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make something that obviously projected that shadow, and then I came up with the idea, using 13 birds, from the movie The Birds, and then the human skull, which actually, if you shine light on it, it projects Alfred Hitchcock's shadow.
When do you know you've created the shape that you want to cast a particular shadow?
Basically, I drew his silhouette on my wall, and then, shined the light on it and on different angles, and then just came up with these pieces, and then, tried to fill in the silhouette that I drew, and then kind of just modified it from there.
Okay, getting back to Krampus for a bit, what inspired you to create a larger-than-life-size sculpture of Krampus?
Some of my reasoning I can't really explain, but I actually had the idea before I even heard of any of the movies or anything. I knew of the legend of Krampus. I'm not even sure where I heard of it. After that, I was searching for some movies or some information on Krampus and came across some really stupid movies. But then there was actually some decent ones. And then last year I just decided, well, I'm going to make a life-size Krampus, which I envisioned to be a 12-foot Krampus. He's actually a little bit different than the German folklore, because he doesn't carry the bag of sticks on his back as a sack. He has like more like a Santa Claus sack that he's carrying. So it's kind of a combination between German folklore and a little bit of mix of our own stuff.
Ah, you've put your own spin on it.
Yeah.
And this year you created a new piece that's a companion for Krampus, the Yule Cat.
Oh yes, Joculatorin. He's just been completed this year, and actually he's all lit up now too. And normally during the daytime his eyes are yellow, but then at nighttime his eyes turn red. And he's the Icelandic Yule Cat, basically an old folklore there. If you don't have a new piece of clothing by Christmas, you could fall prey to the Yule Cat, and basically a Yule Cat will come down a mountain and eat anybody that doesn't have new clothing. I guess it was kind of put in place to get people to work harder.
Jeff, how has your community responded to these pieces?
Most everybody loves the Krampus, and last year there was a few people that hated it. The hate kind of inspired me to build a Yule Cat. and I'll probably be doing something new every year from now on.
I think these holiday sculptures are absolutely fantastic. They're some of the most remarkable pieces I've ever seen. You mentioned you take commissions. How does it work if a Twisted Philly listener checks out Tossed and Found art and would like you to create something for them?
Sure. Normally with small pieces, they just give me an idea, and then or maybe some pictures, and then I can make it. And then if they like it, they'll buy it, and if they don't have to. I don't require them to buy it if I make it, because they might not actually like it. They'll give me some ideas, and I think probably 99% of the time they really like it.
Oh, I'm sure they love it. I looked at the pieces on your site. My daughter and I are big fans of art made from found materials. Are the sculptures on your site for sale? Are they in an art gallery?
A lot of the pieces on the site are already sold. Some of them are actually down in the Hanover Art Gallery in Hanover, Pennsylvania. And then there's another gallery tattoo shop in Hanover, Pennsylvania has a few of my pieces also. People contact me, and then I'll make it, and I can ship them. I can definitely ship them small pieces.
Well, before I let you go, I definitely want to talk with you about requesting a commission. Jeff Asper is such a cool guy, and his art is truly one of a kind. As I told Jeff, here at my house, we're big fans of art made from found and recycled materials. Yes, I did commission Jeff to create a small sculpture for me. Can you guess what? It's a sloth. I told him I love sloths, and I would love to have one for my desk. And that was it. I wanted him to feel free to use his creativity and design whatever type of sloth comes into his head and materializes through his sculpture. You can find out more about Jeff Asper's sculptures on his website, tossedandfoundart.com. When you go to the site, one of the first images you'll notice is a moose. It's huge. His artwork completely blows me away. You can also follow him on Facebook at Tossed and Found Art and on Instagram at tossed_and_found_art. If you'd like to talk with Jeff about commissioning a piece, you can contact him through the Tossed and Found website or the Facebook page. Jeff, thank you so much for spending time talking with me. I'm going to have to take a ride out to New Oxford this holiday season and see that 12-foot Krampus for myself. And the Yule Cat, which is another totally twisted and creepy Christmas legend. The legend of the Yule Cat comes from Iceland, where it's called the Jólakaturin. It's believed the legend of the Jólakaturin may go back to the Dark Ages. The story of this Yule Cat was first told by farmers to their workers as a means to scare them into finishing all the wool processing before Christmas. Why did they need to finish it before Christmas? Well, because if you don't get a new set of clothes by Christmas Day, the vicious Yule Cat known as the Jólakaturin will come down from the icy mountains and eat you. What the hell kind of legend is that? It's crazy, but it speaks to the traditional work ethic of the Icelandic people. Parents even used the Jólakaturin to scare their children into doing their chores and any other work they had, or they'd risk being devoured by an enormous fanged Yule Cat. York actually has a song about this animal. Other than Jeff Asper's giant Jólakaturin sculpture in New Oxford, Pennsylvania, none of us in the Keystone State have anything to worry about. There's no giant Christmas cat lurking in our bushes ready to eat us. There's one more Krampus legend I'd like to share with you that has roots deep in the Pennsylvania Dutch community and customs, and that's the story of the Belsnickel.
Oh, judgment is nigh, for the Belsnickel ist I.
Yes, he is finally nigh.
I am nigh!
Every year, my grandfather would dress up as Belsnickel at Christmas. He was okay at it. I am great.
Ah, the Belsnickel. His name is the joining of words. Belsen, the German word to wallop someone, and nickel, well, for St. Nicholas. In other words, the Belsnickel could wish you a Merry Christmas or open a can of Philly whoop-ass on you. The legend of the Belsnickel, and I think it's interesting he's referred to as the Belsnickel and not just Belsnickel, originated in the southern region of Germany. When the Germans immigrated to Pennsylvania, they brought the legend with them. As recently as the 1800s, the Pennsylvania Dutch were still celebrating Christmas with visits from the Belsnickel. Belsnickel isn't as frightening as Krampus, nor is he as charming or festive as Santa. The Belsnickel arrives a few weeks before Christmas. He doesn't hide or sneak down chimneys. He comes right into your house, wearing a fur coat, although that sounds nicer than it really is. He's disheveled and a little dirty. The fur coat is worn and matted. Sometimes he wears a mask to hide his face. On his back is a pack filled with candies and little gifts for good boys and girls. And in his hand he carries a switch like Krampus, made from birch branches, which he could use to wallop bad little boys and girls, but most of the legends say the Belsnickel only uses his switch to scare naughty children. Because he shows up a few weeks before Christmas, children still have time to be good before St. Nicholas arrives on Christmas Eve. Although it's been a few hundred years since the Belsnickel regularly visited homes in Pennsylvania, you can still see him today in Kutztown. The Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University is an open-air folklife museum on the Sheridan Farmstead. And in December, the Belsnickel makes a special appearance at the Cultural Center. They have seasonal artists and crafters, food and music, and the Belsnickel with his switch asking children if they've been good this year. Basically, the Belsnickel is like a furry human version of the naughty and nice list, getting everything in order for the man in the red suit before he harnesses up the reindeer and hops in his sleigh on December 24th. You can find out more about the Belsnickel and other holiday events at the German Cultural Heritage Center on the Kutztown University website at www.kutztown.edu. When I chatted with Jeff earlier this week, he asked me if I was attending the Philadelphia Parade of Spirits, celebrating Krampus next weekend. Alas, I will not be able to make it because I will be in Chicago for a long weekend. I'm heading to the Windy City to visit Jillian from the Court Junkie podcast, Juliet Miranda and David the producer from the Unwritable Rant podcast, and hang out with Jeremy Collins from Podcasts We Listen To and the guys from the Sofa Kings podcast at their Chicago meetup on Saturday, December 9th at the House of Blues. So, if you're a Twister in Chicago, I would love to see you. Come on out to the Sofa King meetup on Saturday between 2 and 5 p.m. I'm also planning on hitting the Chris Kindle Market on Saturday night and doing a little Christmas shopping in the freezing cold. I hope you enjoyed this episode about Krampus. I know Christmas is traditionally a time of joy and laughter, and I don't see any reason why something like Krampus can't be joyful too. Certainly, the Philly Parade of Spirits next weekend believes that. It's a family-friendly event with activities for kids, and they make sure everyone in attendance knows don't scare others unless they want to be scared. I like my Christmas with a little horror in it, and if you do too, then I recommend you listen to Twisted Philly episode 19. The title is Merry Christmas, Ya Filthy Animals. It's my Christmas Day episode from last year, and it's all about one of my favorite holiday traditions, Christmas horror movies. 2 of the movies I share in that episode have a whole lot to do with Krampus. Before I go, I have a few what-ups to share. First, what up to our 5-star reviewers on iTunes. What up to Greg and Ina Keys listening down in North Carolina, where it's a hell of a lot warmer than it is here. Love you guys. What up to Sammy Stew? I'm sorry you have to listen to Twisted Philly at home. Sometimes I laugh so hard I can't breathe either. What up to T-Bird to you, who left a second review? Well, they tried to change their first one and realized it never went through. That means so much to me that you would come back to iTunes, which is a total ass pain, and update a review. And thank you for telling your friends about the show. What up to M.E. Dub, who wants a cheesesteak while listening? Yo, I want a cheesesteak too, but I gave up beef, except once a year, because I can't go the rest of my life without ever eating a cheesesteak again. What up to Pinned You Part PVD? I hope I said that right. Thank you for your kind words about the Let It Burn episodes and the Holmesburg Prison episodes. They're some of my favorites too. And last but not least, what up to Ice Fox Me, who found me on the Hillbilly Horror Stories podcast. Thank you again to Jerry and Tracy for having me on their show. And thank you, Ice Fox, for taking the time to hop on over to Twisted Philly. What up to Jeff Asper for being such an amazing artist and for giving me some of his time to join me on Twisted Philly. Jeff, I'm so excited to see what you create next. As always, thank you for listening. That's it from me. Ciao for now, Twisters.